the red heifer. Rabbi prepares for long-lost biblical ceremony. One rabbi shares his preparations for the biblical ceremony of purity through a red heifer mentioned in the book of Numbers. Also, there was an update from the Temple Institute. I'm going to put the clipping at the end of this video. Listen very, very carefully to it. They seem to be very secretive about this red heifer, and as far as I know, for the last 7 years that I've been watching in earnest about this heifer, they haven't been so secretive as they have been this year. For some reason, I encourage you to use your discernment, that you'll see that for some reason they are being very quiet about this. Now, this article that is in front of you in Israel National News seems to suggest that this red heifer is going to be ready this year. Okay, so it says Rabbi Brighteon, who heads up the Institute for Medicine and Jewish Law, has been dealing with issues related to the Third Temple for many years. Despite his opposition to ascending the Temple Mount under the present circumstances, he is in favor of preparing to any possible degree for the Third Temple. Let me just zoom in on this. One such preparation that he's been pursuing for some time, along with Rabbi Ariel of the Temple Institute, is the biblically mandated red heifer. The book of Numbers specifies that the heifer must be completely red without blemish and have never pulled a yoke. The heifer would be burned and its ashes used in the ceremony of ritual purification. He says, now this is in him being quoted, Rabbi Brighteon. He says, pursuant to the efforts we have previously discussed in this regard, we attempted to ensure that there would be a red heifer ready this year. The cows were grown under optimal conditions under the careful supervision of pious farmers from the Golan Heights. Unfortunately, during the last year, black hair was discovered in them. The good news is that the hairs have returned to red within a few months, and at the same time we are now looking forward to the 2-year birthday of 3 more heifers that were and still are completely red. So we're talking about 4 heifers here. And they are going to have the 2-year birthday, which means that they've fully lived out 2 years and they're into their 3rd year. So that qualifies them. Once they've had their 2-year birthday, they're into the 3rd year. And he says, with God's help, and if there are no mishaps, now this is very key. Within half a year, we have 3 red heifers ready for the temple. Remember that, within half a year, because I'm going to go through the calculations of the building of the temple. The temple takes, we know exactly the number of days. The Bible tells us, if we extrapolate, if we reverse engineer the dates which are given to us, we can extrapolate the very number of days that it takes to build the temple. So he says, as someone who has heavily invested in the study of red cows over the years, must be quite riveting study that, Brighteon has discovered that there is a special organization in Scandinavia that specializes in raising red cows because their meat is more tender and flavorful than other breeds. Brighteon made use of the technology in use by the Pua Institute to freeze red cow embryos and bring them safely to Israel. So this process began some 25 years ago under exacting rabbinical guidance and is now nearing its completion. Now, this article seems to reveal a little bit more than the clipping which I'm going to put at the end of this video, but just keep that in mind. He also says that these rabbis conducted a study and examined the amounts of wood required for every kilo of red cow to obtain the correct ash for the ceremony, and he says, I hope this research will be practical very soon. So now what I want to do is go over the scriptures which tell us the very number of days that the temple will be built. Now, it's the scriptures are in Daniel chapter 12, verses 11 and 12, and Daniel chapter 8, verses 13 and 14. So that's interesting. 11 and 12, 13 and 14. So in Daniel chapter 12, it says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. Okay, so the Antichrist takes the sacrifice away. The temple is built, the sacrifice begins. There's a period of time that there is that they are sacrificing. That is the first half of the tribulation. Then the Antichrist comes in mid-tribulation. He comes in with an invading army. He conquers the land. He comes in, he kills the 2 witnesses, and he causes the sacrifice and oblation to cease. It is critical to understand that the sacrifice which takes place in the temple is legitimate sacrifice. It's legitimate sacrifice. I know there are many Christians who want to disagree with this. So be it, you'll see. The sacrifice which takes place is legitimate sacrifice. The two witnesses come in, they witness for 1,260 days, then they are killed by the Antichrist. The whole world sees them resurrected and they are horrified. That's in Revelation chapter 11. And then in Revelation 16, that's when the bowls of wrath are poured out. So the first date that we have, Daniel chapter 12, 11 and 12. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. So from the time that the Antichrist stops the sacrifice, causes the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. So the sacrifice is stopped and the abomination that makes desolate is set up. He sets himself up as the temple, in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. So Jesus tells us that he that has an ear to hear, that we must understand that the abomination of desolation is set up, that Daniel the prophet speaks about in the holy place. Jesus says it's in the holy place. Paul says he sets himself up in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. So from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. So from mid-tribulation there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. So 1,290 days. That is the number of days that's the number of days that is from the mid-tribulation, the sacrifice being caused to cease, and the abomination of desolation set up. 1,290 days. And then for some reason there's an extra 40 days there. Blessed is he that comes to that. But we're going to concentrate on the 1,290 days because that's how long it says it is until the end. So 1,290 days. Then Revelation 11:3 says, and I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days. So we've got two periods of time here. 1,290 is the second half of tribulation. This is the Great Tribulation. 1,260 days, this is the first half of the tribulation. So the two witnesses are witnessing to Israel, witnessing to the world, telling the world, preaching the gospel to the world for the first half of the tribulation, not for the second half. I know some people say that the two witnesses come at this in mid-tribulation, and I don't understand how they reconcile that, because the two witnesses arrive in Revelation 11. They're killed by the Antichrist. They are resurrected, and the whole world is sending gifts to each other when they are killed, and then they're resurrected, and they say, "Come up hither," and that's in Revelation 11. Then you have those interceding chapters from Revelation 12 to Revelation 15. Those three chapters are interceding chapters. And then Revelation 16 is when the bowls of wrath are poured out on the world. Because why? Because they've called the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. They've killed the two witnesses, and that is when great tribulation happens. That's when the sun scorches men, and the hailstones are pummeling man, and everything in the sea dies, and all the rivers turn to blood, and everything, because the sacrifice and the oblation has been caused to cease. So we have 1,290 days plus 1,260 days. Those are the two number of days given to us in days. The second half of tribulation in Daniel 12, first half of tribulation in Revelation 11:3. Then in Daniel 8 verses 13 and 14, I think that's interesting. There's 11 and 12, Daniel 12, 11 and 12, and then Daniel 8, 13 and 14. It says, "Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice?" So there has to be a temple, there has to be sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation. So the daily sacrifice obviously can only happen once there is a temple. A temple has to be built. So how long is the vision concerning the daily sacrifice? From the moment it starts, and the transgression of desolation. So from the moment sacrifice begins and the transgression of desolation, which is mid-tribulation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. So the daily sacrifice beginning, the abomination of desolation in the mid-tribulation, and the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. So all those things. So we need a temple, we need to be sacrificing, we need the abomination of desolation, and the trotting down of the sanctuary and the host, which is Israel. And that says it's going to be 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay, so that's at the end. That's at the end. So it's telling you from the moment sacrifice begins until the sanctuary is cleansed, obviously including the abomination of desolation and mid-tribulation setup, 2,300 days. Now we make the calculation. Okay, the calculation, the temple build duration is the two witnesses witness for 1,260 days. Then at mid-tribulation they are killed by the Antichrist in Revelation chapter 11. They have to witness to Israel, tell Israel that they've made the mistake again, they've missed the Messiah again. The first half of the tribulation allows Israel to read the gospel, to study the gospel. Anyone who wants to tell you that Israel don't believe in the Messiah until mid-tribulation doesn't give them an opportunity to read the gospel, because at mid-tribulation that's when Israel is being chased out. That's when they get out of there. When the Antichrist comes in, then she's chased into the wilderness. So the two witnesses, as soon as we go up, they are coming down to break the news to Israel. Then they witness for 1,260 days until the Antichrist invades at mid-tribulation. They are killed by the Antichrist. That's at Revelation 11. Okay, the Antichrist then takes the daily sacrifice away, and the abomination of desolation is set up for 1,260 days. So adding those together, 1,260 days from Revelation 11, that's the beginning. That's from the beginning of the tribulation until mid-tribulation. That is the witness work of the two witnesses. That is their ministry for 1,260 days or 3.5 years, plus the 1,290 days, which is the daily sacrifice taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, comes up to 2,550 days. So 2,550 days, the beginning, the first half of tribulation plus the second half, deducting the 2,300 days from the moment the sacrifice is set up, from the beginning of sacrifice, plus the abomination of desolation until the end. So until the cleansing of the temple. Okay, so let's put you until the cleansing of the sanctuary, it says. And so the cleansing of the sanctuary is 250 days. So we know that it's going to take 250 days to build the temple, because this is from the beginning of sacrifice. You cannot have the sacrifice without the temple. So from the beginning of the sacrifice, that is, so the temple's ready and the sacrifice begins from that moment until the end, including the abomination of desolation, is 2,300 days. So we deduct 2,300 from the total of the beginning of tribulation plus the second half, and we come up with 250 days. And that is 250 days, 250 days is 8 months. That's how long it's going to take them to build the temple. Why am I telling you this? Because they are saying that the heifer is going to be ready within 6 months. So if they are saying today that the heifer is going to be ready within 6 months, that means that the heifer will be ready before the actual temple is completed. And that's perfect. That is going to be perfect timing. You know, God's going to time. He's the God of the last hour, right? So he's going to time this perfectly. It's not going to be, the red heifer is ready now the rapture of the church happens. No, no, no. It's going to be the rapture of the church happens, and they are building the temple in Israel in such a panic, because that's what's going to happen. They're going. I firmly believe that they're going to rid Israel of the Edomites. Read Obadiah. Read the book of Obadiah, and there is a genocide that's in there. There's a genocide. They're going to wipe them out, and that's why the whole world comes against Israel, because they're going to get very, very religious. They're going very Torah. So 250 days is the number of days. We even know the number of days. The Bible tells us the number of days. If we just extrapolate this, that it takes them to build the temple. So the red heifer, the secretiveness around the red heifer, what they are saying this year is unique. It hasn't been said before. Okay, Jesus says he does nothing in secret, but we can discern and we can understand these things because we've been watching. We know what they've been doing and how outspoken they have been about this in the past. We know we've been watching the Temple Institute. We've been watching the red heifer updates. Now, why are they being suddenly so secretive about this? Why are they being so quiet about this, right? So I'm telling you, my friends, I'm going to be amazed. I'm going to be absolutely amazed if the rapture of the church doesn't happen this year. Look, I mean, I believe it's going to be happening for a long time, but if they are saying that red heifer is going to be ready within 6 months, I'm of the opinion that it's more likely that the red heifer is going to be ready just on time. It's not going to be a red heifer in like 6 to 12 months. No. The red heifer is going to be ready at the very moment that it is sacrificed for the ashes to cleanse the temple.